Giga Texas is 85% done, but will it be finished in December or March? I'm Brian. Welcome to My Tesla Weekend. A quick thanks to the newest Patreon, Brad, at the very cool level. Very cool. And please smack the like button early so others might actually get to see this video, since it's the only way YouTube will actually show it to others. Construction really heated up in Texas, even if the weather wasn't quite as warm. But even with a 2% jump in the total this week, it was actually 1.5% before the rounding. So will the factory be done in December? Or is it going to be more like next spring? Well, in addition to the usual Guestimath this week, I'll show some GuestiMagic running out over quite a while after now, with all the construction timelines and a good guess of when it's really going to be done. So definitely stay tuned for that. So let's start with this week's graph and a work update. The site prep increased nicely in the central corridor as the dirt was backfilled around the massive footings we saw poured recently. This is likely undercounted, but with just 2% left to go, there's little need to break it down any further. The foundation increased by the same amount, since the two numbers track in parallel this late in the project. This also may be undercounted. The remaining part of the south end of the central corridor may only have a single support column down the middle. And if that's the case, we're going to see a big jump in how the footings are counted in the next week or two when that becomes apparent. The framing had a huge week with 8 rows of steel filling in. This area represents about 80,000 square feet of new space, about 7,400 square meters. The pace is quick, with 2 cranes lifting steel into place and a third one managing the deliveries of steel as they arrive. This is likely to continue around this pace until this site is finished. The site's overall progress jumped nicely thanks to all this steel and foundation work, plus the lagging indicators of roof and interior, which are counted more slowly. To my surprise, we're still looking at a December completion date by the numbers, though the numbers, I should mention, are wrong. And it's mathematically impossible to finish in December, but we'll get to that in a bit. The roofing ticked up as more final layers were installed, and this is still likely undercounted, but the math only gives it half weighting when it first goes on, then counts the second half along with the completion of the interior spaces. This is done because sometimes the roof changes, sometimes things are added or new vents. You just count them slow. The interior completion saw its biggest increase yet, and possibly the biggest jump we'll see over the life of the project. 18 new squares were counted this week, but as you probably know by now, that doesn't mean much in terms of a site this big. Specifically, it will be added to the bottom line as 1/5 of a tad under 1 square per week against a site total of over 2,300. So are we going to see it completed in December? Or is it going to be more like March of next year? Well, it depends entirely on what you consider done. We'll crunch some numbers for what the coming weeks and months will look like if we make some reasonable assumptions in the tracker, but first, let's take a look at the site map. So this is what Giga Texas looks like as of October 11th, 2021. And now let's roll it back to December 14th, when this tracker first launched, and go through it as we do a week. To understand the site map, this is the overall footprint of the main building. The orange is the footings, with the darker orange being heavier footings. The gray is the framing work, with the darker gray indicating roof sections. In blue, you see the finished interior closed-off space, with darker blue indicating more floors. Yes, we track the floors. So the darker the blue, the more floors that there are. The black lines indicate a firewall or expansion joint, with the heavier black lines indicating a concrete wall. And as a reminder, this only tracks the main emerald footprint, not any of the other projects around the site, since we haven't seen permits and we don't know what their eventual size and scope will be. Mad thanks to Jeff Roberts for allowing use of his amazing drone footage. So there it is, and there you go. As of October 11th, Giga Texas, the future birthplace of Yo Cybertruck, is 85% done and will be complete, for lack of a better word, in a total of 528 days from groundbreaking on or about December 30th of this very year. It'll actually be done in some capacity before then, and also not completely done until sometime well after that, but again, we'll get into that in a minute. It's still a mostly two-floor structure, as you can see, with just over 8.7 million square feet framed up, which is about 810,000 square meters, a figure that's likely to continue climbing over the coming weeks. So now let's get to it. Let's look at the site map over the coming weeks and months and figure out when it will actually be done and what the completion curve is gonna look like. Okay, so this is it as of this week. You've seen it. I believe, let's see, why don't we start with the foundations? I think we will also see these areas sticked up nicely at about the same pace. And I think we'll see some roof sections going up along here. Change the date. So this is my guess for a week from now. We'll still have a completion that's actually speeding up. Let's go down and look at the graph. Looks real good. Let's go out another week. At this point, let's just go ahead and count all these guys. Okay, so on this week, I think we're going to see some pretty magical stuff happen. In terms of this, how many is that? 6? We can absolutely do another 6. I think we can do another 7. We'll also see the roof being put on. Bringing us up even further. Let's go out another week. November 1st. What big assumptions can we make? I think this is going to be just about done. Go ahead and slap some roof sections in there. That's looking good. So by November 1st, we might be looking at about 90% done, with 2 full months to go to count all the good stuff. Okay, so let's bump this out another week. Okay, now here is where it gets exciting. Let's see what happened. Okay, so on November 8th, 100% of the site prep and foundation and framing is done, and everything else is getting real close. Completion looks like December 20th. It isn't. It is not. Chart's looking great. Let's go pop it out another week. Okay, so let's see what happens November 22nd. Everything left here is strictly this math. It's all self-accruing at this point. Let's see how it goes. At this point, I'm counting everything as closed, walled off, essentially done on the outside. Let's look at December 13th. Running out. I'm going to interrupt here and point out that I made a catastrophic error in how the interior squares are counted in this tracker. This one, not the main one, where I forgot to stop counting them at the end of 16 weeks, which makes the January number look plausible when it just isn't. It's going to be 17 weeks after we finish, around March. And while it may feel like this tracker is winding down, since I have shown you the future going out into next year, it just isn't likely. Construction is probably going to continue on new sites around the property, new buildings, new offices, the cathode plant in Project Bobcat area. Who knows, but we shall find out, and we shall track it. So my question to you is, when is it actually going to be done? Are you going to count it when the last walls go up? Are you going to count it in December when we've got actual production coming out of the factory and it's in the 90%-ish area? Or are you going to wait all the way out until much later when, the actual interior is fully complete? Let me know in the comments. I'm very curious. Thanks to those of you who joined the live stream last week, where we tore down the ridiculous hopes and dreams of General Motors in their 9-year electrification wish list. It's pretty silly. And as a reminder, of course, there will be another live stream this Friday, so subscribe if you want to get notified about that. Smack of the thummy thing in either direction if you made it this far. Follow me at 4K Podcast and, great stuff, I guess. So what did I miss or misunderstand? Leave your thoughts and ideas in the comments below, and as always, my friends, stay tuned, stay juicy, and I simply cannot wait to hear from you clever robots on the flippity flop. And a quick thank you to my Patreons, who get early access, bonus content, an ad-free experience, and a help keep the channel running for as little as $1 a month. I move this shout out to the end as a thank you to all of you for your generosity and support, which helps me avoid having to pander to YouTube's dreaded and painful algorithm. So I thank you guys so much for that.